Hey guys, Marcus Melnick here with Firearm Mentor. Hope you're enjoying my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. These little things are free to you and really help the channel. I appreciate your support. Enjoy. Thank you.
The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Greetings and welcome to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick from Firearm Mentor and Stress to Logic, your host. And this week has been pretty interesting in several things that have been happening. And I'll start with, well, it looks like the Highland Park parade shooter, Robert Crimo the Turd, I said that on purpose, changed his plea to guilty in his trial last minute. Now, if you're a fan of the show from the beginning, you'll know that the first episode that I ever did, I had Abraham Avalos on, and he was at the Highland Park parade shooting. He ran towards the gunfire. Now, he was not armed. He's certainly a firearms rights activist, but he saw all the blood in the streets, and he became what I will call a paramedic helper. Did he have paramedic skills? No. But he certainly could carry things for the paramedics, help them lift, help them move, help them put patients in ambulances, and that's what he did. So that's a true hero. He didn't do it for glory. He did it to help other people. So let's talk about Crimo the Turd. The Highland Park parade shooter changed his plea to guilty right before his trial was about to begin at the Lake County Courthouse in Waukegan 2 weeks ago. The decision was a surprise to many and brought a sense of closure to families of the victims and visitors. And last June, the Lake County State's Attorney's Office thought they had a deal for Crimo, who was 24, to plead guilty, but that deal fell through. And the trial was just minutes from starting when Crimo surprised everyone by entering a guilty plea. He appeared in court in a dark suit and tie, looking like he was ready for a trial. The gallery was full of survivors of the July 4th, 2022 mass shooting. The judge and the attorneys were on the verge of starting the trial, with opening statements set to begin at 9 a.m. But Crimo apparently had no intention of going through with it. Instead, he changed his plea to guilty moments before. Judge Victoria Rossetti then asked Crimo a series of questions about this major decision, including asking about any medication he has taken, if he understands the time he will likely be facing if he pleads guilty, and if he was forced to enter this plea. His answers were simply yes and no in a monotone voice. The judge even told Crimo, "You can have a trial. You don't have to do this." He acknowledged that and maintained his guilty plea. "It was a shock to learn that he was changing his plea," said Ashby Beasley. "I think there's a huge collective feeling of relief. Our community wanted justice." Beasley was at the 2022 4th of July parade when Crimo opened fire with an AR-15, killing 7 people and injuring nearly 50 others. The victims ranged in age from 8 to 88 years old. "Just knowing that his plea has been entered and we will not have to see him again is all we need," Beasley said. Prosecutors say that they had a mountain of evidence, including DNA, fingerprints, eyewitnesses, video, and a confession. They say they were ready for trial and were confident that they would win. "We believe what we're about to present to the jury was absolutely going to convict him," said Lake County State's Attorney Eric Reinhardt. Reinhardt said that the change in plea was not the result of a plea deal. This was not a negotiation. It was not a deal. He made a free decision to plead guilty to every single count that this trial team and law enforcement team was about to present to the jury. He received nothing in exchange for the plea today. But now, they'll never have to present the case. Crimo's guilty plea to 21 counts of first-degree murder and 48 counts of attempted first-degree murder carried a mandatory sentence of life in prison with no chance of parole. There is no such thing as the death penalty in Illinois. That was done with a long time ago. The shooter's father, who pled guilty last year to charges related to helping his son obtain a gun, had nothing to say after court. He later told ABC7 that he did not know his son would change his plea. Crimo's parents left the courthouse shortly after the hearing. Highland Park Mayor Nancy Rotering says the guilty plea will help the community begin to heal. We're all surprised and relieved that they don't have to realize this pain of reliving the experience for the next 3 to 5 weeks, Rotering said. Today's plea of guilty is an important step towards justice, but it does not erase the pain. Residents say while no plea can repair the lives that were shattered by the event, it does lift a cloud hanging over and allows people to heal. The normalcy of life bounced back quickly in Highland Park, yet emotions 2.5 years after a deadly 4th of July shooting remain raw for some people. Iris Morgan and her twin sister attended the parade in 2022. It'll never be in the past. This is where it happened, Morgan said, who became emotional while standing near where the shooting took place. Chad Zamost worked through his emotions in a song he wrote called Independence Day. I specifically wanted the song not to be necessarily about the shooting itself, but about the feelings that we all had afterwards. Highland Park residents say Crimo's guilty plea allows them to move forward. There will never be full disclosure, but it's a good thing, and it's the first step ahead. And people don't have to hear about a trial and watch it every single day on the news, said Highland Park resident Danny Zamost. I'm thrilled to death it is over, said North Shore resident Ted Willen. I don't think I would have used that phrasing, really. It'll save the taxpayers a lot of money, time, and effort, and hopefully we can move forward from this in a gentler way, said Morgan. Well, it already cost the taxpayers a ton of money. With the trial prep and evidence prep, there's just a lot going on into the case. While the guilty plea helps this community to heal and move on, residents say that what will remain is the resilience that came out of the tragedy. It really warmed my heart and made me proud to be a resident here, said Highland Park resident and business owner Chloe Corgan. Like so many Highland Park residents coming together to help after the mass shooting, Mendel Corgan and her husband, Smashing Pumpkins frontman Billy Corgan, raised money by holding a concert at their tea shop, Madame Zuzu's. The only way we knew how to help was the music gathering, great food, tea, so we put on a fundraiser. Others put their grief into action also. Kitty Brantner started the nonpartisan organization March 4th in an effort to reinstate the federal assault weapons ban. This is an American epidemic and it's preventable. So I know how many amazing folks from this community who stood up to say no more, Brantner said. Whether it's publicly fighting for an assault weapon ban or quietly moving on their own way, Highland Park residents can say one thing that they have learned from the tragedy is that a mass shooting can happen any day or anywhere. An attorney representing more than 50 of the Highland Park families says lawyers are preparing a civil lawsuit. A sentencing for Crimo is set for April 23rd at 9 a.m. Many survivors are expected to read victim impact statements at court at that time. And the victims include Catherine Goldstein, who was 64 from Highland Park, Irina McCarthy, age 35 of Highland Park, Kevin McCarthy, age 37 of Highland Park, Jacqueline Sondheim, age 63 of Highland Park, Stephen Strauss, 88 of Highland Park, Nicolas Toledo Zaragoza, 78 of Morelos, Mexico, and I actually met some of his relatives. Eduardo Uvaldo, 69 of Waukegan. Irina and Kevin McCarthy's 2-year-old son was found wandering alone in the wake of the Monday and in the wake of the shooting and safely returned to his grandparents. So all around, this is a tragedy. It's a horrible thing. I'm glad that things are coming to closure, but a lot of these comments people were made in an emotional state of mind. That's not at all a criticism. They certainly are entitled to be in an emotional state of mind. But I really find it interesting that the theme was we can now start to heal. Well, if you waited 2.5 years to start to heal, I think there might be an issue. Whenever you're in a tragedy, you want to begin healing right away. That doesn't mean you jump right back in, but that means you begin the process to healing yourself emotionally and psychologically. And the only real parallel I'm going to draw is when you fall off a bicycle, you get back on it. And I'm not saying that that's immediate and it's the same for everyone. Some people need counseling, some people need medication, some people need group therapy. I get it. It's a horrible, horrible thing. But in any time a horrible thing happens to us physically or emotionally or mentally, we've got to get back into it so we can begin to relive our lives appropriately. So there's always paperwork involved in a trial, and Robert Crimo III signed his trial waiver, Donald Trump, after pleading guilty. And experts that say that his plea of guilty should stand no matter what name he signed. He could have signed Mickey Mouse or Donald Trump. What mattered was the testimony. And just should tell you the mental state that some people are in. Just absolutely ridiculous. So we're going to take a small break here. We'll segue to other issues. Stay tuned.
I want my listeners to know that this is my dream, teaching people about safety. If it weren't for you, if it weren't for my listeners, I couldn't live my dream. So on behalf of my family and myself, I want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me to live my dream. And I also want to continue to live my dream, and I'm excited to continue to spread the word of safety. Recently, I began a new service as a conference keynote speaker. So if anyone would like for me to speak at future events, or if anyone knows of an introduction or would like to discuss how we can work with one another, I'd love to do just that. The keynote speaking website is www.stress2logic.com. That is STRESS2logic.com. If you're aware of any conference speaking engagements where you'd like to have me speak, I'd love an introduction. You can always share my electronic business card, which is Marcus Melnick, MarcusMelnick.com. Now, back to the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back from the break, and I wanted to share a couple things that I did this week. You just heard my keynote speaking commercial, and this past week I had the honor of speaking at 2 different synagogues on 2 different topics. The first synagogue was Beth Judea from Long Grove, where 15 of us, happened to be all men, got together at a program called Tap the Torah. And what we would do, or what the program does, is it discusses modern issues. This particular Tap the Torah issue talked about Judaism's relationship to guns. And so I was invited to speak on the secular end of it because I'm Jewish, I've gone to Hebrew school, but I don't know the manuscripts back and forth. But it was a very interesting discussion, and although I don't really talk about religion, I'd like to talk about what it says in the Jewish liturgy in the Old Testament and in the Talmud about weapons. Now here's the interesting thing. The times, the 400 to 700 BCE, the weapons of the day were slings and arrows and spears, but if you think about it, that's projectile weapons. One part of the Old Testament talks about, in times of peace, beating the spears into pruning hooks and beating the swords into plowshares. So that's during times of peace. These things were tools. Very interesting. It also talks about, can a Jew bring a weapon while they're practicing Shabbat or the Sabbath? Now, Orthodox Jews do not work on the Sabbath. You'll see them in very Jewish areas, Buffalo Grove, Skokie, Rogers Park, walking to and from synagogue, and they're usually dressed in all black with a big, not really a fedora, it's a different type of hat, but they look like a big fedora, and sometimes non-Jews will describe them as looking like they are Amish. But the question came up, can they carry a weapon to and from work? Well, as a tool, no. But as an ornament, yes. So people wear ornaments all the time. They wear belts, they wear jewelry, and the rabbi said If it's an ornament, sure, they can wear it just like they would wear a tie or a tie clip. But if it's a weapon, then it is a working element. Now, there's modern interpretations of this. Some parts of the Jewish literacy say A, and some parts of the Jewish literacy say exactly the opposite. And you write the way that you feel in the margins. Different people interpret, and different rabbis interpret literature, especially religious literature, differently. Also, it was very interesting. There's a part of the scripture where it says you shouldn't raise a vicious dog in your house, and you shouldn't set up an unstable ladder in your house, and if the roof of your house is a parapet and you're using it as a patio, then you should actually put a fence or a guardrail around it. And what that's talking about is negligence. You don't want someone to be in your house without a way to be protected. There's a duty to protect. Also in the Old Testament, it said that if a burglar breaks into your house and it's nighttime, you don't know if they have a weapon and you're justified in killing them. But if it's daytime, you're not. I found this very, very interesting. And of course, that's the part I learned. But my part was, what can we do in Illinois to use firearms? Is it against Judaism? Is it for Judaism? There's an interesting thing in these scriptures that a Jewish person cannot sell a weapon to a bandit, nor could they sell a weapon to a Gentile, because at the time they were feared. The Gentiles are going to kill Jews, so we're not going to arm them. You also couldn't sell a weapon to a Samaritan. Not that Samaritans were going to be killing Jews, but they might sell the weapon to a Gentile who's going to murder Jews with it. The other thing is, the only Jew that we could not sell a weapon to would be someone who was involved in criminal activity. It's not that dissimilar today with the FOID card. Everyone is background checked 360 days a year, and weapons cannot be sold to bandits or people who have committed felonies or people who have mental health issues. So very interesting how this is rooted in Judeo-Christian beliefs. I thought that was fascinating. This week also was the holiday of Purim, and Purim commemorates the Jews of Persia being saved from a plot to exterminate them, as told in the book of Esther, and is celebrated with joyous activities, reading the Megillah, which is the scroll of Esther, giving charity, dressing up. And the bad guy in the story, his name was Haman, and we had all these noisemakers to drown out his name when we read the Megillah. You've heard the term the whole Megillah. That's the whole story, and it's based upon this story from the Old Testament. So the story takes place in ancient Persia, where Jewish people led by Mordecai lived under King Ahasuerus, who was the Persian king Xerxes, same person. Haman, who was the king's advisor, he's the name that we make all sorts of noise when it's announced. He plotted to kill all the Jewish people in the kingdom after Mordecai refuses to bow to him. And King Xerxes had a queen, and he ordered her to, during a festival, to dance in the streets naked. She refused. He had her killed, and then he said, "Bring all the beautiful women before me. I will pick a new bride." And Esther, who was a Jewish woman, was the most beautiful woman in the land, and Xerxes, or Ahasuerus, he selected her as the queen. She was secretly Jewish. And she learned of Haman's plan with the help of Mordecai, who in some literature says it's her cousin, in some says it's her uncle. It's interpreted, it's reinterpreted throughout the years. And Esther revealed her Jewish identity, exposed the plot, leading the king to reverse his decree and allow the Jews to defend themselves. Now, at the time, it was the Pony Express. The messages were taken to other kingdoms via camel, via horse. So it wasn't like he could reverse the edict. What ended up happening is Jews were allowed to defend themselves. No one actually attacked the Jews except for a very small amount of people. The Jews were able to defend themselves. So the holiday of Purim was established to commemorate the deliverance. It's a joyful holiday. There's a lot of drinking. There's a lot of reading the Megillah. Oh, what happened to Haman? Well, Haman had built a gallows to hang Mordecai. And Haman, I believe, did it on his own property. And the king went to Haman and said, I wish to honor a man. Now, what happened was Mordecai had foiled previously a plot to kill the king by two of the king's servants and never was recognized. So Haman, being a big ego head, said, oh, wow, king's going to honor someone. Must be me. So he says, I would adorn him with a crown and have him ride the best horse through town to honor him. And what would you do to his enemies? And Haman said, I would have them hang in the gallows. So the king said, okay, I want to honor a man and have his enemies hang in the gallows. And Haman's puffing out his chest. And the king says, you're the enemy. And Haman got hung. We also eat these triangular-shaped cookies, often filled with a jelly filling, prune, raspberry, poppy seed. They're dry cookies. Some people love them. My wife loves them. I don't really care for them. Unless they're chocolate, then I'll eat them. So that's how the holiday is commemorated. And the story is in the book of Esther, and it's read aloud on Purim. And it's a joyous holiday. It's basically, they tried to kill us, we won, let's eat. That's how most Jewish holidays play out. So Beth Israel Sinai, which is a Racine, Wisconsin synagogue, asked me to come and speak after reading the Megillah on how to respond to anti-Semitism. And it was I received feedback right after. I was very, very well received. And I was honored to be able to speak at that synagogue. It was a lot of fun. And the great thing about it for me is I'm not fluent in Hebrew. I can sit through a service, but when it's 3, 4, 5 hours of another language that I don't understand, it's not very easy to pay attention. So it's kind of boring. This was a little bit of Hebrew, which was fine. It was a little bit of Hebrew singing. I happen to know the tunes, but it was all in English so we could understand what was going on. And it was just so very awesomely pleasant. Firearm Mentor's next concealed carry class will be Saturday, April 5th to Sunday, April 6th. And you can sign up online at firearmmentor.com/classes. That is www.firearmmentor.com/classes. CLASSES. And one of the great things I also encountered this week is I would like to regularly write articles for a national magazine. And I already wrote one, as talked about at the beginning, called Digital Interference. And again, if you want a copy of that, happy to send it to you. Just look me up via my electronic business card. That is www.marcusmelnick, MarcusMelnick.com. I'll send you that article. So I'd love to regularly write for them. So I talked to the editor, and he said, just continue to pitch me articles. So I pitched him an article on how our perception and cognition change during a high-stress or self-defense incident. He got back to me right away and said, we'd love it. Go ahead and write the article and submit it. So that is what I'm working on. I have several months to complete it, but I'd like to tighten up that schedule and just pitch a ton of other articles, because in the firearms industry, I look at myself as a disruptor. What does that mean? Let me give you an example. All of the how to shoot literature says that you need to learn how to shoot with 2 eyes open because you're scanning for additional threats. And in class, I make the comment of some people shoot with 1 eye open, some people shoot with 2 eyes open, and some people shoot with 2 eyes closed. Don't do the last thing. And it's kind of a joke, but the reality is, I tell people, it doesn't matter if you shoot with 1 eye open or 2 eyes open. Why doesn't it matter? I need to scan for additional threats. Well, after studying the human stress response, which is certainly closely related to self-defense incidents, it doesn't matter because you get tunnel vision. That's one of the things I spoke about at the synagogue in Racine, is that when we get upset, we get tunnel vision. Happens to me all the time. I get very aggravated in traffic. I'm not a road rager, no. I'm Mr. Calm on the outside, but sometimes I'm impatient, and when I see drivers that are less than average in skill, I get frustrated. If I get really frustrated, I start to get tunnel vision, because I'm a human being. That happens to be what frustrates me. Same thing if I'm in line behind, this happened actually at Woodman's. I went to go get gas. Mid-pump, the electricity went out. So I went in to see, oh, well, what's going on? No employee there. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I go into the store just to be nice, to let the manager know, hey, there's no power at the gas station and nobody works there. I'm in line behind a woman. Now, I thought she was digging in her purse for a couple pennies so she could get her 2 packs of cigarettes. Turns out she was $7 short, and I'm standing there and I'm waiting. After about 10 minutes, I'm getting tunnel vision, and I go to the person who's manning the self-checkout, and I was like, instead of saying, what the heck, let's go, I said, can you help this poor employee? He's kind of stuck with this woman. Oh, we only have one register. I go, well, I just need to talk to the manager for a minute. So they got the manager for me, didn't wait very much longer, and they said, hey, look, I want to let you know, power is out at the gas station. There's people at the pumps looking around like they have no idea what's going on, but nobody's there to put up a sign to say, hey, we're working on it, we don't know what happened, the fuse blew, whatever it was. And he thought I was complaining, and I really wasn't. I was just informing him, because I had to pick up a few things inside the store. Well, did you go to the other station? No, I didn't go to the other station. I'm not an employee. I didn't say that to him. I was really nice. But I'm thinking, why? No, I'm not doing your job for you. And he's like, well, do you need anything from the pump? And he was asking about a receipt. And I said, yeah, I need gas from the pump. And he laughed, and he took care of whatever business he had to take care of. So I hope you guys tune in next week. We'll have more information for you. Until then, please stay safe. And if you like what I'm sending downrange, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Happy to help you with any questions you have. Have a great week.
We have monthly concealed carry license CCL classes in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. Dates can be seen at firearmmentor.com/classes. If you have a question, we can be reached at www.firearmmentorcard.com. That is our electronic business card, has all of our contact information and links in it. It's the easiest way to get a hold of us. Until next time, stay safe out there, and I'll see you at the shooting range. This is Marcus Melnick from Firearm Mentor signing off. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.